All right. Well, hey, welcome. I'm here today with Preston Gale. He's a licensed real estate professional, works in North Texas. He is a member of a bunch of real estate associations, the National Association of Realtors, Texas Association of Realtors, Collin County Association of Realtors, and he's a great real estate professional. At the very end, he'll give you his contact information. He is also an investor, and he's purchased over 10 single family rentals. So Preston, really great to be with you today. Thanks for spending some time to just kind of visit and talk about real estate.
Yeah, it's great to be here, man. It's been a fun ride so far, getting to know you and everybody else in the community. So I'm excited.
Well, it's great to get your insights. You know, you're kind of interesting in that you're an investor and you're also a real estate professional. So you know real estate because that's your job and your profession and you're great at it. And then you buy rentals. So I think just having that background is kind of it's a really interesting skill set to bring to the table. So let's kind of I got a few questions to kind of fire up. And if you want to go on a tangent, feel free. But when did you buy your first investment property? How long ago was that?
So I bought my first one before I actually knew what I was doing. I basically did a new build. I bought a couple of lots for cash, really cheap, in an area called Sherman, Texas. They were about 12,000 a piece for basically a 50 by 100 lots. And then I ended up having a builder in the area build me a house, and I kind of threw some numbers together. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I had a little cash, and I'd been seeing all the stuff that people were doing, and I didn't want to invest in the stock market. That wasn't my thing. And so ended up building a house. One of the things to know is Texas, the real estate, it's not super expensive in some areas, but the taxes are a lot higher here. And so that was one of the things that I didn't take into account when I built the property, that it would appraise for a lot more. And so if it appraises for more, you're going to pay higher taxes. So I ended up, that was my first real investment property. When it was completed, I ended up selling it and making a quick buck, I think 15 grand or so, but all I did was buy for cash, get my money back, and made about 15 grand. That wasn't the purpose of it. My goal was to buy and hold, but I got scared. The numbers didn't really work when I got down to crunch time. And at the time I was just a full-time fireman, and my wife is a teacher. So that's something to know, is that you don't need to be a real estate professional to do this stuff. All the new stuff that I've learned is helpful, but at the time I was not, had no knowledge in real estate, and I wasn't a real estate professional at the time. So.
Well, you know what, Preston, you just gave a little nugget there. I don't know if you know how good of a nugget you gave. Did you hear that? You jumped in, you didn't really know what you're doing, but you got in, you bought something, you made 15 grand on it. And I will tell you, one of the things that new investors do is they sometimes go through all this analysis, right? Hemming and hawing, should I jump in? Oh, I wish I would have done it, X number of years ago. At the end of the day, you got in, you took action, and you made money on an investment of real estate, and it got you moving forward. So I think that's just a really great pro tip, which is don't get that analysis paralysis, right? Get in, do a reasonable due diligence. And we'll talk about some things that you probably do now that are different now that you're doing more of these. But I just got to hand it to you. A lot of people don't necessarily have the gumption to jump in and do it. So that's a cool way to start. It's a great story. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you buy? So that was a home. What types of investments do you buy now, typically?
So all I'm currently investing in is turnkey single family rental properties. Just the community that I'm associated with, and what I'm comfortable with and know the most about is single family houses. That's what I do in my real estate career, and that's what I'm comfortable with right now with investing. So right now, that's all I have. It's worked out well for me. There may be a time where I decided to go another route and get into something different as well, but I plan on always having single family rentals as the main part of my portfolio.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And so you started off your first one in Texas. And I see in the exchange world, we see so much capital going to states like Texas, Florida, Tennessee now. Where do you invest? Do you invest in Texas? You invest out of state? And what markets do you like?
So most of my house, or best, it's going to be split half and half. Really, is Memphis, Tennessee, and St. Louis, Missouri, as of right now. So
Great markets. I'm in both those markets as well. I know, in fact, kind of an interesting backstory. I know, Preston, you and I have been looking at some of the same properties, kind of at the same time. And I think I maybe won out on one, and you've won out, and so I
yeah,
know we're in similar circles where we're looking at similar types of properties.
yeah.
What made you look at those markets? What do you like about Memphis? What do you like about St. Louis?
So my number one investing strategy is cash flow. Cash flow is king. My goal in investing is not, I don't just want a bunch of houses to have a bunch of houses. I want to create financial freedom in my life, and to cover my expenses and then some. So cash flow is the number one goal for me, and those are some of the best cash flowing markets in the country that are affordable. You can get in at a low price point, still have a really great tenants. And so everything that I'm trying to do as far as cash flow is in those markets and has worked out well for me. They're not, people will say they're not great with the whole appreciation side of things. But I believe that the first property I ever bought in Memphis was October of 2019. I bought it for 74,000, and that house is worth over 100K now. So that's a pretty big jump in a 2 year time span. So, and I didn't buy it for that. I was told that maybe you'll get 3 to 4% appreciation, but as you've seen with the market, the way it is all across the country, rents are up and houses are appreciating. So, yeah, that's part of why I invest in those areas. So,
Yeah, that's some solid appreciation too. I mean, in a matter of a couple of years, you
yeah.
just look at the percentage, that's solid. I don't know if you know about Memphis. Did you see that Ford's doing a huge investment? They've got something called the Blue, I think they're calling it the Blue Oval City, but they're going to build a whole factory, $5.6 billion they're investing north of Memphis, and it's going to be an electric truck facility. So they're going to make F-150s that are electric. So being in Memphis right now, that's going to do nothing but bring in tons and tons
Oh,
of
yeah.
jobs. And then you're going to get all those ancillary services that'll spin off. So, I mean, it's going to be a huge magnet. So
Yep.
great place to be. Definitely a great place. Now, are you very involved with the management? So you're in Texas. How do
Yep.
you handle the management of your properties?
So I always use property management. So when I was buying that first property, I was I think when everybody starts, they nickel and dime things, and they don't think about the long term game of what real estate investing is. So I read a book on property management, how to do everything. I mean, I had it all. I had notes. I had everything, and then I'm selling that property. And then I was like, looking at other markets, and it seemed like every time I ran into somebody who was really successful and had a whole bunch of rental properties, about probably 9 out of 10 used a property management company. And every one of them said it was worth that 8 to 10% off the top every time, because my whole goal in investing in rentals, of course, like I said, is to become financially free, and be able to spend more time with my family and travel and do those things. And I couldn't do that if somebody's calling me to come fix a toilet at 2 a.m. in another state. So I just wanted to get rid of the headaches, and have as little hands-on as possible in my investments.
Yeah, no, hey, you know what? I'll tell you what, that's really a great little pro tip too, is, looking at the big picture, right? Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. And I made the mistake with my first property. I got a multifamily and I thought, oh, I'm going to save the money and manage it. Biggest mistake I've ever made. So,
Yep,
definitely property management's money well spent, because it helps you meet your long-term goals.
for sure.
So, when you look at that, when you buy a property, how long does it take you to get a good return? You typically buying them vacant, or they rented? If they're not rented, how long does it take to get a tenant in it? What does that look like for you?
So every property I've ever bought, besides that first one we talked about, has had a tenant in it before I have even closed. So that's not always the case, but it's worked out well for me. With the companies that I've worked with, is they've always had a tenant in there right away. I don't do the whole punching the numbers to see how long it's going to take me to get my money back, because I know my long-term goal is, to cover my expenses. I think if you add all up with the depreciation and the tax benefits, somebody paying down your mortgage and everything, I think you make your money back in what, 4 years or so. But if you add all that together, but like I said, I don't really get deep into that. As long as if it's rented out and I'm getting, somebody's paying my mortgage, and then I'm getting money to say, hey, pay for my truck that I'm driving, that's return right away to me. So
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, Preston, you're doing better than me. I can't say that all mine had a tenant in tow. So check the box. You're ahead of me there on that area. So that's
I'm sure it sure won't
that's
always be the case, but
I
it's
know that's a great. Well, if you buy them that way from day one, you really have more money coming in to pay the mortgage. You don't have that stress. So you've done something right for sure doing that. Now, what sort of metrics when you look at properties? Do you have anything you look at? People look at cash on cash return. People look at maybe rent to value, 1% rule. What's kind of your go-to resource, or what do you do to evaluate whether you want to buy an investment and it's going to be a good cash flow, or it's a dog and you want to walk from it?
Well, I use a calculator through Cash Flow Tactics. There's a lot of, I think Bigger Pockets, a lot of other communities, and you can look them up online. Have a calculator to where you can type in your taxes, interest, and all that, and they'll tell you if it's a good return or not. I do, for simplicity, I try to stay near that 1% rule. I know that's harder to do nowadays, so that's not all I base it on. But I like to, gross at least 300 a month on a property. If I'm buying it, because like I said, I'm buying for cash flow. I'm not trying to, I stay in the lower price range properties around the 150, or 75 to 150 range. Because I'm not buying for just appreciation. I'm buying for cash flow. So that's my number one thing is stay near the 1% rule. If I'm bringing in at least, $300, I'm doing good.
Well, hey, Preston, we got something else in common. That's kind of my minimum too, is I like to see 300. Some do better and do
Yeah.
350, 400, 5, but if it hits 300, it's starting off, it's a pretty good investment. So
Yeah.
same thing. Now, what do you invest in? You mentioned the price range, but do you look for class A, B, C? What, do you have a favorite, or, kind of how do you approach that?
I would say my favorite's in the B range. My first property was a C plus, and that's been my best property I've ever owned. That was rented from day one. They just moved out this last month, so I'm doing my first turnover with that property. And that was in the C range, and it cash flows better than any property I've had. I never had a call on it. That is my best property. So I stay in this, C plus to probably B is probably where I go, because once you start getting into A plus, you're going to pay, the prices are going to be probably around the 200 plus range. Cash flow is probably going to be pretty similar to what you would get in that 120 range. So, if you're worried about tenants, if you have good property management in place, they're going to do all the vetting for you and put a good tenant in there, whether it's a lower price property or a higher price property. So that's the area that I like to stay in.
All right. No, I'm pretty similar there too. I've got C assets that have done well. Anywhere in that C to B range is kind of my sweet spot as well. Now, you're a real estate professional. When you bought these properties, did you use a real estate professional, or how'd you go about buying these properties?
So I have used a real estate professional before, that kind of does the turnkey thing. Um, so they know the market, is they're out in boots on the ground every day, so they know the area. And then I've used a turnkey provider where that's all they do is try to find good rentals. So I would say the number one thing is to just, don't just guess and find an agent. Make sure you get in touch with somebody who knows somebody. Referrals a big thing. I use people like yourself and other people that I've communicated with that are more successful than myself, and ask them who do you recommend, for finding properties in a certain area. So that seems to work well for me, and give me peace of mind to where I'm not worried about if it's in a good area, bad area, and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, great tip there. Great way to go. I think word of mouth is probably one of the strongest ones. Somebody who's done it a little bit, has had a good experience. It's the best way to go. So with all these properties, you're busy doing the real estate, which, the market now is just nuts. How much time do you put into, let's say on a monthly basis, overseeing, managing the rentals? I mean, how much time does that take?
Probably about 10 minutes a month on an average basis, because I guess I don't have a massive portfolio, but I'm even sure people that don't. The way that I'm doing it, like I said, is for time freedom, and financial freedom. So we have people that in every aspect of it to take care of things for you. And so unless I'm having to, upload some cash for turnover, which means somebody moved out and they're getting it make ready. And then just checking my statements at the end of the month. I check my bank statements to see, if everything was paid. And then I check on the online portals that property management companies provide. And that's about it. So,
Wow, that's not bad. I mean, to have as many properties as you do and looking at, 10 minutes and checking a few bank statements, that's not
yep.
it's something it's scalable, right? You can do that on the side and still be working full time and have this as kind of a side investment that you build up. Do you have any websites online, like managing things? Do you have any apps that you like or online resources that are really helpful to you and evaluating properties or keeping track of things?
I do use the cash flow tactics calculator for evaluating properties. I actually didn't use that at all in the last few. I just knew they were good deals and I knew the rent. And so after you do it enough times, you can kind of do the numbers in your head. If somebody gives you, the insurance costs of taxes, you kind of get it down pretty quick to where you're comfortable with it. To track my properties, I use Stessa, which is a great program. It's free. I actually didn't use that till probably about 4 or 5 months ago. I heard about it and I just never did. And then once I started going into other types of financing, the number one thing they want to know is about your portfolio. Well, looking all that stuff up in your computer in 10 different folders is not fun. So now I have one place to go. It shows me when I bought it, and all the info that I need to know, whether, when our insurance is up or anything like that. It's right there, in a one-stop shop kind of deal. So that's been
That's
super helpful.
Yeah, that's pretty handy. You do find over time as you start buying properties, you get to evaluate them faster. I at this point, I told my daughter, I go, watch this. I got a property. I go, look, in 1 minute, I'm gonna make a decision. Like what I do is I go to Zillow and I look at the street. So I just do a quick little look around on Zillow, check out the rent, see what it says on there. Not that Zillow is the be all end all. I know it's got its flaws.
Yeah.
And then I'll just do a quick one up and down the street just to make sure that it's not a dumpy street or a lot of things. And then I can pretty much tell by the numbers just when I know what the rent is in the property and I look at it. I can do it in 60 seconds, if I'm really put to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. You get better and better at it. How do you finance these? I'm assuming you're not paying all cash for these. How are
Oh,
you going
yeah.
about financing, or maybe you are doing all cash? But how do you buy these properties?
So my first five, I just did conventional Fannie Mae loans, which is the cheapest money you can use. That's what you use on your primary residence, and everybody is allowed 10 Fannie Mae loans. So if you're married, each one of you can have 10 each. So I just did five because I went from being a full-time fireman W-2 employee to being a full-time real estate professional. So now I'm 1099. Things get a little more tricky, qualifying and stuff like that. So I went to what's called non-QM mortgages, non-qualifying mortgages, and they basically go off of your portfolio, and income statements, and in your credit score. So it's a little more easy. The rates are a little higher, but you can buy them down, and it seems to work well. And you're still, being able to cash flow with them, and they're 30-year loans. So, and I've put anywhere from 20 to 30% down on properties. I try to put 20 on all of them, but some that are under 100, they'll make you put 30% down. So that's what I do. If I had all cash, maybe I would, but that definitely hurts your return in the long game.
Absolutely. And none of us can scale and grow and go all cash, right? We got to use the bank's money. In fact, Probably you're like me, you actually want to, right? There's a benefit of using the bank's money and getting the loan now and paying it back with dollars that are devalued as inflation, picks up. So that's pretty cool. It's interesting you mentioned the non-QM. I know when I first got started, I didn't go over that threshold of 10 because I thought it was so hard and complicated. What I've learned now, I actually prefer the non-QM. It's easier for me. I get a working relationship with somebody that I know, and we become friends, and it's faster. So, just a little word of input to everybody. Don't feel like those first 10 that it's hard to do that. You just got to change a little bit, but there still are loans out there. You can still get the job done. You just have to kind of go into a different product. But in some ways, it's almost easier. I don't have to provide like my last two pay stubs and all the detail that you do for a normal loan. It actually is a little easier on the commercial side, I find. So,
Yeah, for sure.
hey, so Preston, it's pretty cool to hear, how many properties you're getting fast. I want to go through just a few questions for you. What would you say for a first time real estate investor, not bought one? What would you say would be some input, some advice that you would give to them that would really make a difference buying their first rental property?
I would say just make sure you have your ducks in a row. Make sure that you do your due diligence. Like I said, go off of people that have done it before you. Maybe ask them for some assistance, and make sure everything's in place. The numbers work. You want your first one's not always going to be great. It's never going to be a home run. But if you have the right people in place, ask the right questions, and look at the right things, it could work out. And just remember that it's single family is not the huge sexy thing that everybody talks about. It's not a get rich quick thing. It's a long term game, and that's what you're playing. You got to remember that the rents will increase, and your payment's going to stay the same basically. And then the more you scale, the more properties you get, the actually safer you are, and the more income you're going to make. So just know that you may buy that one property, and that's why this isn't super popular, is because people hear about in bigger pockets, all they talk, oh, I got 100 rentals and this and that and multifamily. But this is definitely a long game, but it's a great place to put your money. So
Yeah, well, you know what, Preston, Wall Street's figuring that out too. So the
yeah,
big firms, the big money in Wall Street, they really kind of overlooked single family homes because they thought it was this fragmented class, and now they're looking for yield, and they're buying single family homes all over. So if the big boys on Wall Street and the big money, the people that have billions of dollars are chasing it, they probably know it's a pretty good asset class. And as you and I know, just from managing them, you can get a pretty good return on a single family rental. It's a pretty impressive rate of return, and you stack them up. You
yeah.
mentioned a mistake at the beginning. You were doing that first one, and the property taxes kind of snuck up on you. Any other mistakes or things that looking back you do differently on your first few purchases?
Man, I guess after that first one, no, not really. So that was me before I had actually talked to anybody, knew anything. I just kind of read, and I was like, I'm not buying in another state. I didn't know anybody who did that. So yeah, I would say that was I haven't really had any hiccups since then, knock on wood. So I don't have
Wow.
any great advice in that area.
Preston comes up to bat every time he hits it. He gets a home run. It's going well. So
No, no,
I'll tell you
I've
what.
definitely had some that I had to evict one tenant recently, and there was something that was broken every time. It seemed like every month, until finally I was like, okay, somebody's got to do something about this. But there's really nothing that I could do personally to make that a better situation, though. So
Yeah, it's a luck of the draw too, right? As you get more, most of them perform well, but you're going to have an outlier here or there that you kind of have to deal with and
yeah,
analyze it. So it's part of the game. If you're going to buy and scale real estate, you're not always going to have a check every single month from every property. You're going to have
yeah.
to make some adjustments with it. So, any last input, words of wisdom, things that would help out a newbie, first time investor, just tipping their toe into this that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, like I said, I think for me personally, I have to tell myself this is a long term game. It's not something where you're going to start out and make a ton of money right off the bat. But as you accumulate properties, those properties are going to end up buying you properties. So, say once you get to 5 properties, I mean, that's gonna buy you a property a year or so, on top of what you're saving. So just a compound effect. And a lot of people that I know personally are like, man, you have how many rentals? And they don't get it. And they're like, because the debt and all that other stuff, they don't realize that the more properties you have, the safer you actually are. Because say I have 1 property or 2 properties and one's not rented, I'm not making any cash flow. I'm breaking even. If I have one and it's not rented, then I'm paying that mortgage.
Right.
And so if I have 10 and one of them or two of them is not rented, I'm not going to notice it, and so on. So as you scale, some people think that's scarier, but it's actually a safer, you're in a better place because, 10 to 20 rentals, you have a couple that are having issues. You're not going to bat an eye at it. And I've noticed that as I've scaled that, if something's like now I have one that's turning over, it's my best property. And, I'm not even worried about it because I know that I'm still going to cash flow over the month, regardless of that or not. And these properties in the 100,000 or whatever range, they're less than most people's car payments. I think the average car payment's almost $500 in America, and
Wow.
I think the average price of the homes that I'm buying, like my mortgage is around $400, is probably the average. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the cars. That's a great tip. And, one thing I was just thinking, we met each other through a group. I would say one thing that's really important is associate, right? We met through Cash Flow Tactics, which is, I highly recommend it. They just
Yeah.
have some great strategies on real estate side and just overall on a whole bunch of issues with building wealth and all sorts of things. But get involved with a group, right? It could be a local meetup group. It could be a local investor group. There are a lot of different things out there, but check out, I do a shameless plug for Cash Flow Tactics. They are
Yeah.
awesome. I've become friends with the principals and just so many great people. So for me, it's easier. And I'm sure you'd probably say it's too, Preston. If you would like-minded people, we're in the group and we have some of the same turnkey providers we're talking to and lenders, but now you got people to kind of lean upon. If you got a question, you're like, hey, what do I do here? Or what about this or what about that? And we have a network that we can kind of tap into. So we're
Yep.
not flying solo, right? It's not like, oh, it's all on us. We got people we can reach out to that can help us out, which I think is awesome.
It's not what you know till you know. So yeah,
Absolutely,
there,
absolutely.
there's all kinds of groups to get involved with, whether it's cash flow tactics or not. I mean, even locally, you just do a little Google or Facebook plug. I guarantee you there's real estate meetups anywhere.
Yeah, no, every community is going to have a real estate group, and you're going to have some seasoned people and people that are just starting out. It's great to get plugged in with that. So finally, just kind of wrapping up, and I want to thank you. It's been a privilege just to spend some time with you. It's great to interface in person. We've
Yeah.
text messages and Facebook messages and stuff back and forth, and I know we're in similar circles and in similar markets, but if people are looking for a real estate professional, a really good realtor north of Dallas, do you know anybody? And who would you recommend?
I think I'd recommend me. So yeah, I do real estate, anything that you can think of pretty much, but I usually just buy and sell single family homes. We do some commercial land and stuff like that. But yeah, we have a website, texasrealestatemarket.com. And I'm starting a new YouTube channel called Living in North Dallas. So that should be coming soon. My team name is AG Properties Group. I have a company with one other partner, DeMarcus Allen. So that's where the last initials of our name, just AG Properties Group. So if you know anybody living anywhere north of Dallas, all the way up to Oklahoma, we pretty much cover it. So Collin County, Grayson County, in those areas.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, interfacing with you, Preston, you're a first class professional. I've seen some of your listings as they kind of pop up and beautiful properties. And I know just interfacing with you, you're professional, you're responsive, you follow through, you're knowledgeable. So highly recommend anybody needs a great real estate professional, track down Preston Gale. What's the YouTube channel again? Give that again, because that'll be
It's living in North Dallas. So I've actually filmed quite a few videos. I haven't started it yet. But I mean, by the time everybody sees this, there should be some videos. I should be doing about 2 a week, and it'll be on, I'll just be covering basically local markets in the area. I just did McKinney which is fourth fastest growing city in America, just north of Dallas, about 200,000 people. So I kind of just go through the neighborhoods. I go through pros and cons of the area. And basically I'm just the local expert, and I do a map video. So a lot of people are concerned about how to get places and the location, and I basically draw it all out for them. So I'm just kind of becoming the local expert through YouTube. It's the second most searched channel behind Google now. So I'm kind of using that platform, following some other people's footsteps who went before me and are doing really well with it.
Awesome. Great. Hey, Preston, thanks so much for taking some time. It's been great to visit with you. You shared some great nuggets. Really, you packed in some really good insights just as you were talking. So thank you very much. I want to thank you for hanging out and doing this, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, Preston.
You too. That was fun. I appreciate it.